Hey, party goers! Thank you so much for joining our previous uh, presentation with Rowan, and we really hope that you all enjoyed the presentation and some of the illuminating talking points that they shared with us. This show is continuing. And I just wanted to introduce myself for those who may not know. I am Brittany from the College Greenlight team, and we are really happy to have you here joining our second presentation for Online College Block Party, a web series that celebrates first-gen college and underrepresented students on their journey to and through college. I hope you all enjoyed the previous presentation with Rowan. And just in case you all are just joining, just know that we will be sending over the recording via email. So look out for that email shortly. Now, before we get started, here are some tips to get the most out of College Block Party. Use the live chat feature to the right and chat with others in the room. Feel free to introduce yourself and let us know where you're from. And if you have a question, go ahead, ask that question in the tool in the feature below. And note, if you are having any And if you know, if you want to get a particular question around your GPA, test scores, or admissions chances, just know some of our colleges won't be able to provide you with the best answer because they want to see your full application. So hold those questions and definitely focus on the presentation. Focus on the presentation and in the experiences of our speakers today. And if you're curious about your admissions chances, please visit capex.com/greenlight.students and explore over 3,000 college profiles and learn more from our CapEx insights. If you're joining us live, be sure to join the conversation on Twitter at Online College Block Party. And we're thrilled to have the admissions team here from Oxy joining us. Joining us on the stage is Julius and alumni and current students, Andy and Tatiana. And just to let you all know, we have the entire, well, not the entire admissions team at Oxy, but we have our amazing team at Oxy, Keen, Jordan, and Madi in the chat room answering all of your questions. So if you have a question, click on Ask a Question in the feature below, and they'll be more than happy to address all of your questions for today. All right, team, enough talking. Let's go ahead and start the show. All right, Julius and Tatiana, as well as Andy, welcome to the College Block Party stage.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brittany. Welcome, everyone. My name is Julius. I'm an admission counselor here from Oxy, and I am also an Oxy alum. I graduated in 2016. I was a politics major from Chicago, though now I am a full-time Angelino. But I would love it if our students joining us, if you all could tell us where you're tuning in from in the chat box. And while you're doing that, Andy, would you mind introducing yourself? Where were you from? What did you major in? And what are you doing now?
Sure. My name is Andy. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, which is in Los Angeles. And when I was at Oxy, I majored in, I double majored in econ and Spanish. And I graduated in 2019, so just about a year and a half ago. And I am currently working as a portfolio analyst for Bank of New York Mellon in their wealth management division. That's me.
Awesome. And Tatiana?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tatiana, or Tati. I go by both. And I'm originally from Ashland, Oregon, and I'm actually right here right now, which is unexpected. I graduated from Oxy in 2018, so around 2.5 years ago, and I majored in group language, but also did a lot of coursework in diplomacy and world affairs. I really loved my experience, but it was very much what I majored in is very much a liberal arts kind of major. I got to study a lot of languages, and it led me into my super big passion that I don't think I would have found without it, which is getting my master's in speech and language pathology. So that's really cool.
Awesome. And that's exactly what we're going to spend the hour today talking about, is what can you do with a liberal arts degree, and what is, in so many words, the value of a liberal arts education? This is a question we get asked a lot in the admissions office, is what is this liberal arts degree going to mean after I leave Oxy? And the reality is it can mean so many things, and there really is no limit to what you can do with a liberal arts degree. So I wanted to start today off by playing a fun game. I know it's the end of the day, it's a Wednesday, so hopefully this will bring a little energy to the conversation. Name that liberal arts alum. If you all could, in the chat box, tell us who this is, what they do, and if you know it, where they went to college and what they majored in. Does anyone have the answers? Let's see if we have any winners, just in the chat box. You might know part of it, you might know all of it. Put in what you know. I'll give you 15 seconds. This is Steph, if you're good. Maybe, we'll wait. Any other? Steph Curry. Okay, we're getting there, inch by inch. Perfect, yes. It is Steph Curry, LeBron. Not here, Jessica. LeBron. Steph Curry, he is a basketball player, right? There we go, Alyssa. Where did he go to college? Does anyone know? He did not graduate from Oxy. Great guess, though. I'm sure we wish he did. He went to Davidson College in North Carolina. And can anyone guess what he majored in? Right? You can't major in basketball. Steph Curry was a sociology major, all right? Let's keep going, though. We've got a few liberal arts alums to get through. How about this one? We know who this is? Davidson. Good job, Ethan. Who do we have here? We have Miss Hillary Clinton. And what is Hillary Clinton's profession? Can we get it down to just one title? Why don't we go with former U.S. Secretary of State? That seems all right to me. Where did she go to school? What liberal arts college did Secretary Clinton attend? Does anyone know? Feel free to throw it in the box. She went to Wellesley College in Massachusetts. And this is something that I think is pretty exciting. You'll start to see that liberal arts colleges exist all over the country: North Carolina, Massachusetts, California. And she majored in political science. So that one is probably a bit more straightforward. And you're almost right, Ethan. She went to law school at Yale, but she did her undergraduate at Wellesley. How about this guy? Do we know who this is? Let's see. Any takers? For those of you who are following the world of pop culture over the last decade, perhaps the world of musical theater. This is our friend Lin-Manuel Miranda. What does he do? Any takers? Going once, going twice? There we go, Elena. Okay, you all know. He's everything. He's a composer. He's an actor. He's a rapper. He's a playwright and producer. He is a Saturday Night Live host. Where did he go to school? Any guesses? He went to Wesleyan in Middleton, Connecticut, way at the top of the country. And what did he major in? Is it going to be a shock? Let's find out. Theater studies. So not shocking. Author, facts, love it. One last go at this game. Who is this? Who's this guy? If you've been paying attention to the news over the last year, I'm sure it's on the tip of your tongue. This is going to be our friend, Dr. Fauci, who is, there you go, Ethan Fauci, physician, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. He is our COVID point person. Yeah, Elena, it is Fauci. Where did he go to school? He went to College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. But what did he major in? And this might be a twist for some of you. What do we think he majored in? He was actually a classics major, Mr. Jordan at Oxy. So go figure, right? He was studying classic civilizations, Greece and Rome, reading ancient texts. Also that he could go on and be one of the leading experts on infectious diseases. So this was just kind of a fun, silly exercise, but I hope it kind of lifts up, that there really is no shortage of things that people do and can do with the liberal arts degrees. Everything is on the table. So let's stop for a minute. What is a liberal arts college? what are some things that define what a liberal arts institution looks like? One of it is that it is going to be small by design. Typically, your classes are going to be around 16 to 20, maybe 30 students. And typically, liberal arts colleges are not going to be bigger than about 2,000 students. Now, you might find liberal arts curriculums in larger universities. You might be able to major in the liberal arts at a larger university, but a liberal arts college is going to be a pretty small institution. It's typically exclusively for undergraduate students, right? Meaning students earning their bachelor's of art and sciences. This allows for it to be a pretty intimate intellectual community, if you will. People all going through the same learning experience together. It also means that all of your classes are going to be taught pretty much primarily by professors because there aren't graduate students on campus that you have to compete with. And lastly, liberal arts colleges tend to really lift up a residential experience. We want our students to be taking classes where they're living, where they're learning, right? This all happens in one place so that you're able to have late night conversations with your roommate about topics you covered in class. For Andy and Tatiana, what did you know about the liberal arts when you were applying for colleges? Did you know what it meant to be a liberal arts student, and what kind of drew you to choose a liberal arts college? Andy, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I didn't know that much about liberal arts colleges throughout the college application process, but as I researched Oxy, I realized that it was a perfect environment for me because I didn't really know what I wanted to major in and wasn't quite sure what my interests were. And I knew that a liberal arts college was interdisciplinary and it would allow me to get exposure to a bunch of different fields and a bunch of different majors, and in that way help me identify what I was interested in most. So.
Awesome. How about you, Tati?
To be honest, I didn't know that much about what it meant to be a liberal arts school. What I really, really wanted is that small kind of student to faculty ratio from a school, because I really appreciate having that connection with professors. It's something that I knew was really good for my learning style. And the added benefit of just being able to explore a bunch of different majors, a bunch of different sorts of conversations was really incredible. So it was a surprise, but I was really excited about it.
Absolutely. No, I think that so gets at kind of the essence of the liberal arts, is that we want you to be exposed to a lot of different ways in which the world operates and see the world through many different lenses. And this is done quite intentionally, right? The average person is going to change jobs an average of 12 times over their professional career, which is going to be about 40 years. That's a lot of time to switch jobs, but it makes sense when you think about it. Because the reality is that, most of you all are going to be working jobs that don't actually exist today. About 2/3 of you are going to be in jobs that we couldn't even name them if we tried. And this shouldn't be shocking, because when you think about some of the biggest jobs that exist today, they are not jobs that existed a decade ago. This includes anything to do with social media or digital marketing or artificial intelligence and computer science. All of these are jobs that really have popped into the world in the last decade. So we are far less concerned with preparing you for one particular career as we are with preparing you to navigate what the world is going to look like a decade from now, or even 2 decades from now, as digitalization, as globalization, and population changes really change what the world looks like and the skills we need from you. So we're going to play a fun little game again. Lots of fun games for us, right? What do you think the 12 most successful or important skills are to succeed in the workplace? This was a study done by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They said, what are the 12 skills employers should have? Go ahead and throw it in the chat box if you have a sense of what that might be. What are the skills employers want you to have when you graduate from college? Give you all maybe 15 seconds to name one or two. Awesome. Communication. Good job. Let's see. What else do we have coming in? Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and start to get through them, but I am curious to kind of flexibility. Good. I like where y'all's head's at. The first one is learnability. The ability to be able to quickly learn a task, even if it's not something you were formally trained in. And I'm sure Tati, Andy, and I could all tell you that that's been absolutely true. Resilience, right? The ability to buckle down when things get hard. Agility, the ability to move and be moved as your situations change, to be nimble. I think a great example of that is how we've all had to kind of be agile during COVID and kind of change how we work, how we do our jobs, transitioning to Zoom, transitioning to virtual experience. Collaboration, the ability to work with people of diverse backgrounds and experiences. Verbal communication, I know that was one that a few of you had said, which I think is awesome, but also written communication. And then I think this even includes how we communicate digitally, but I don't know if the OECD does. Empathy, right? Feeling how other people may be experiencing something, even if it's not directly related to you. Creativity, problem solving, which makes sense, first and foremost, how do you solve problems? Leadership, which is huge, right? Are you going to be someone who knows how to take charge of a situation? And then negotiation, which I think is fascinating, the ability to kind of argue and hold your ground in a diplomatic way. And one more, technology. And I don't think anyone threw that one in the chat. I see empathy, I see growth mindset, but technology, right? These are all skills that you're going to need regardless of whether you end up in healthcare and medicine or technology or law and politics. And so a liberal arts school is really intending to give you these skills regardless of what you major in. You are not going to see majors that correspond solely to one profession, like nursing programs. Instead, you'll probably major in biology. You are not going to major in pre-law. You'll likely major in economics or politics. Disciplines that really give you the skills to be agile, to be resilient, and to develop problem solving and communication skills. So how do we do this? Right? What's the method behind the madness? One of it is through kind of the courses you take. We ask at liberal arts colleges students to take classes across the sciences, across the social sciences, and into the humanities. You would certainly have a major where you would spend about a third of your classes in, but a lot of your learning is actually going to come outside of your major. Tati and Andy, I am curious, and Tati, maybe you want to kick us off. What was a class you took that wasn't necessarily in your major that you found really meaningful and maybe informed the work you wanted to do after you graduated?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of those for me was cognitive science of linguistics. So that was a really, really interesting course that was within, the actual study of the mind and like the biochemistry of it all, but also linguistics, which is something that I've always been really passionate about, but never knew that I could really pursue. And that's essentially what I'm in right now with my master's in communication sciences and disorders. I get to look at research behind language disorders or traumatic brain injuries, things like that. So it really informed me of a whole different world that I didn't even know I could, continue to practice in and learn about.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Absolutely. Andy, how about you? You were an economics major, you work in finance, but what's something you took outside of economics that really kind of informed, how you see the world?
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the most memorable classes was one called Shattering Their Chains, which was sort of a sociology / American studies course where it was all about studying the literature that came out of resistance movements in the United States and in the Middle East. And that's something that I would have never thought of, looking into or studying. And it made for some really, really eye-opening conversations that I otherwise wouldn't have had.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember too, I think those are both great examples, that at a liberal arts college, you're never going to be taking classes only with students in your particular major, right? So you might be in a history class or a sociology class that has students coming into it with an economics background or a biology background, or even an art history background. And so that classroom gets to become a really exciting ideas exchange where you're all learning from one another and being able to share your own fields of knowledge, but also your own personal interests and identities. It's something we certainly value at Oxy, but I know that is really very much a cornerstone of the Oxy experience. That being said, we do want you to become experts in a particular field. Ultimately, that is why you are in college. And so we want you to be able to dig deep in the areas that excite you. Research is going to be a great way to do that. And at a liberal arts college, you aren't typically competing with graduate students because there are no graduate students. So you're able to begin research as early as sometimes your first year or second year at Oxy or at any college. So I think it's important to kind of demystify what research even looks like. As I understand it, research is asking questions and then answering them. And I'll kind of pivot this back to Tati and Andy. What was some of the research you got to do at Oxy, whether it was just a research paper for a class or for your major or working with a professor? How did research kind of inform the work you did? And Andy, why don't we start with you this time?
Sorry about that. So I think one of the first things that comes to mind is a class that I actually took when I was studying abroad, which I can talk a little bit more about later. But it was researching the experience of specific marginalized groups in Spain, which is where I studied abroad. And it was particularly researching the experience of immigrants from Morocco and from Northern Africa. And it was really, really interesting to see the unique challenges that they experience and sort of the economic isolation that they experience in Spain, which is such a unique problem to Spain and Europe that we don't really see here. But it was just such an interesting thing to experience firsthand and to look into and study as a group.
Yeah, absolutely. Tatiana?
So one of my favorite examples of research that I did, I think, was my comps. I did 2 comps. I did one for my group language for like Spanish component, and then I did one for my linguistics. And my linguistics component was something that kind of changed everything for me. I speak Spanish and English and French, but I code switch sometimes, which is changing from Spanish to English. And I think there's like this idea that, and it's a lot of it is informed by, society, thinking that code switching is something that is demonstrating lower level knowledge. But actually through this research, I found that you have to have full syntax, morphology, and semantics to be able to actually code switch. So us bilinguals over here have a really rich knowledge, and we show this in code switching. So that was one of my favorites.
It's awesome. And to give you all some context, so comps at Oxy are a senior comprehensive. So it's a long form research paper, don't worry about it, Tati, that all students will do that kind of correlates to your major. Not all liberal arts colleges will have a senior thesis, but it is something that we take a lot of pride in Oxy being able to offer. I think those are great examples of how you all are able to kind of broadly explore the curriculum, but also sink your teeth into topics that really do interest and excite you. Now, we don't expect you to come into college necessarily knowing exactly what it is you want to do or want to research, and for both Tati and Andy, these were things that kind of happened, in some ways coincidentally, throughout their Oxy experience. But being at a liberal arts college gives you the flexibility to explore and to try on different classes and different experiences. Most liberal arts colleges will not make you declare a major until around the middle of your college experience. So typically you're only applying to the college in general. And then when you get there, you're able to take classes in a broad range of disciplines. And even after you declare your major, you're able to still continue to take classes, even if they don't necessarily fit into your program. So we think that having that academic flexibility and freedom is very important to creating students who are well-rounded individuals and prepared for jobs after graduation. Now, Andy, you started to lead into this, which I'm thrilled about, because we think at the liberal arts school that you have so much to gain from the classroom, but there's only so much you can gain in a classroom, right? To get the skills you need to succeed in the world requires leaving campus and getting into the world. And so this happens in a few different ways, but to kind of pare it down to the most important 3 that I think really kind of inform every liberal arts college student's experience is going to be internships, studying abroad, and research. I think you both gave great examples of kind of what research has looked like for you. And Andy, you started to talk about studying abroad. I'm just curious kind of how you ended up studying abroad. Was that something you knew you wanted to do coming into college? And how did you kind of decide it made sense? What did that process look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't totally know whether that was something that I was going to do going into Oxy and going into college. I actually had hardly ever traveled growing up, so it was kind of a big step for me. But I first took a class that involved a 3-week study abroad trip to Spain over the summer, and I absolutely loved that. We studied throughout the semester Latin American writers who spent time in Spain during the Civil War, and we studied their works, and then we got to go to Spain for 3 weeks. And actually, I just absolutely loved seeing a lot of the historical sites that we studied in the class in person in Spain. And so that really motivated me to take the leap of taking an entire semester and going to Spain. And it was just such an incredible experience. There's so much that you can only learn and experience, and your eyes are opened in ways that they wouldn't otherwise be if you hadn't studied abroad and really immersed yourself in a completely different lifestyle, informed by a completely different culture. So that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah. No, it's really exciting. And at liberal arts colleges, you see that students are able to study abroad at much higher percentages than larger universities. So we really do work to make sure that it's a reality for all of our students. And if you're thinking about studying abroad, if it's something you're curious about, I would love to know where you would want to go. So feel free to go ahead in the chat box and tell us where you would want to spend your semester. If you could go anywhere in the country, or anywhere in the world, I should say, where would that be? And Tatiana, I'm just looking at the list of internships, study abroad, research. I know we talked a little bit about research, about study abroad. How about internships? Did you have the chance working in sort of linguistics to do any kind of internships?
There, I unmuted myself, sorry.
No problem.
So I actually got to do my internship abroad. So I studied abroad in Paris, and one of my favorite parts of actually being there was actually having that experience of working and going to school and being in a city that I really, really enjoyed. I got to see, that commute and having to go from, school in one arrondissement and then having to go to like 3 further. And, I got to see the hustle and bustle. I really, really enjoyed it, just being able to have an experience of actually being a professional in Paris and using my French in that way, but also using all of my other languages to kind of really create a brand. So that was really exciting.
Absolutely. And I think I'm so glad you brought that up because, studying abroad isn't just a fun trip you get to do, right? It's not just spending 16 weeks, on vacation. It really is giving you strategic career skills, right? It's helping you understand how business works in another part of the world, how people approach problems, from a very different perspective. And so you're not just studying abroad to take classes, you're not just studying abroad to sightsee, but you really are gaining some career readiness skills that matter so much when you come back to the US. And that's really is, among many reasons why we put such a premium on having those opportunities to get out and see the world. Now, we talked a little bit about the beginning, about the residential experience and kind of the value in living on campus. And I do want to spend some time talking about that. Because I don't think we spend enough time really understanding what happens in these residential communities. It's not just where you get to go to bed at night, and wake up in the morning. It's so much more than that. Typically, 75% to 100% of students will live on campus at a residential school, which means that you are going to be interacting, outside of the classroom with your fellow classmates. You're going to be having conversations about lectures you heard or seminars you attended. And that'll happen in dorm rooms. It'll happen in common rooms. But it also means that you get a lot of support, right? It means that you're not worried about grocery shopping or buying paper towels, or having to balance college with a part-time job. That you can really just focus on being a student, knowing that the necessities are kind of provided for. I think residential communities also give you the skills, though, to kind of think about how you want to manage your own time, what you need to succeed, right? What kind of setting yourself up for success will look like after you leave college. So it really is important for us to know that you're gaining not just the skills to be a scholar in the classroom, but to be a successful person in your own life. Andy, you were coming from Los Angeles, from the Valley. So how different was it for you to kind of go from living, in LA to now living in a residential community, and kind of where did you see yourself gaining from that?
It was really the first time that I had spent any time away from home living with my parents. Even though it was still in LA, I hardly ever saw them. And it was such a unique experience to be in such close proximity to all of my peers, to be able to talk about what we were talking about in our classes, what we were learning from our classes. It was also really good for extracurricular activities. It made it so easy to interact with each other, to prepare for fundraisers together, to prepare for events together, where we didn't have to worry about that extra commute to get to campus, but we were all able to conveniently meet either in the library or in one of our dorm rooms or in one of our residential halls. So that was an extremely unique experience, and it was really unique to be in such close proximity to your peers and your friends, and it really just helps strengthen the relationships that you have both with your peers and also with your professors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where you kind of going back to those 12 skills we talked about at the beginning. Leadership was one of them, and living on campus allows you to really be a leader in that campus experience, right? Because you're able to understand the campus dynamics. You're able to plan events for your dorm, for your residence hall, for the campus community at large. So this is something that doesn't necessarily happen in the classroom, but it happens by really being a part of a residential community. And so at Oxy and at most liberal arts colleges, we typically require all students to live on campus, even if you're nearby, even if you could live at home. We think that you have so much more to gain by living here. Tatiana, you're coming from further away, and so I know many of the students watching might be considering colleges that aren't in their home city. So I guess how did you kind of find support in the adjustment to an out-of-state institution?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of it did have to do with those res ed experiences, that residential life. And I also see that there was a really interesting comment from Jessica in the chat. And I also didn't always know what course to take, and actually speaking to my peers and asking them what kind of classes excited them, what classes really sparked that conversation, that discussion, that really, really prompted me to like register for that class next semester, things like that. And having that community, kind of being a home away from home, helped me, even coming from out of state and yeah, out of country too, because I'm originally from Mexico, but yeah.
No, I think that's such a great example of why those conversations matter. And all halls will have resident advisors, typically of upper class students, that are able to give you that advice, to say that, I had a class with this professor in the psychology department or in the music department, and it was a really awesome class. You should consider it. So those opportunities for mentorship and again for leadership make themselves present by being in these great kind of intimate communities. Why does this all matter though, right? It's a great experience, but it's not the experience alone that's valuable. The data shows that by attending a liberal arts education, you are a liberal arts college, and getting that liberal arts education, you stand to make nearly $200,000 more over the course of your lifetime. Because the skills that you are learning aren't just preparing you for one career, but are preparing you to ultimately be a leader in industries, new industries, up and coming industries. And so this isn't something that we just appreciate, on an admission side, but it's something that the world around us has really come to value. The learning that you get by attending a liberal arts college is appreciated by companies. And so when you look at what engineers, what MBA programs are able to provide for alums, you'll see that it's not a whole lot different than what you're able to get by choosing a liberal arts college. I think this graph actually presents a really interesting kind of example. And Jessica, again, kind of going to your question, you'll see that, if you look just 10 years out of a liberal arts college, a liberal arts student might not initially have made as much money, right? If you went to a 2-year college, then that means you graduated 2 years earlier. So you have 2 years more to kind of work. So it's likely that, kind of looking at a small scale, you may not have made as much money. But if you look over the course of, again, that 40-year professional life cycle, you've been able to move up a company's ladder faster, taking on more leadership roles. You've been able to bring new ideas to the table. And so by the time that you end your career, you really are in a very fortuitous position. And this is just especially magnified when looking particularly at first-generation students. First-generation students tend to really thrive at liberal arts colleges because they come in ready to take advantage of the resources that are available at higher rates than other students. And so it's just meaningful to know kind of who benefits the most from these curriculums, and I think all students stand to benefit, but particularly first-gen students really hit the ground running in these smaller communities. And Andy, I would love to kind of, you've been in sort of what we traditionally consider the finance world, and that's one that, people often wonder, how can if I want to go into finance, do I need to be in a business school? Do I need to be looking at MBA programs? You chose a liberal arts college and are still working in finance. So how do you see your kind of 4 years at Oxy having prepared you for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a huge part of it was the emphasis on communication skills, on writing clearly and, writing effectively. I think all of those things were probably way more important during the interview process for getting this job than the technical finance skills. I didn't even study finance at Oxy. I studied economics, which is surprisingly pretty different from finance, and I studied Spanish, and I just remember during the interview process not really having any questions, specific questions about finance, but more so having questions about my ability to work in a team, my ability to be adaptable, my ability to be a leader. And those are all things that I learned at Oxy through the classes, through having discussions with my peers, because the classes are often very discussion oriented, and that really forces you to be articulate and to be comfortable with speaking your mind. And so those are all skills that I learned in the context of a liberal arts college that became very, very important here. And even on the job, I realized that what matters the most isn't necessarily the technical skills, but it's your ability to communicate clearly with your peers and with other employees. And also your ability to be organized. And I think those are all things that that you learn and that's emphasized in the liberal arts environment.
Yeah, totally. No, and I think those skills are all the liberal arts college institution produced kind of those values here. And I think it just kind of summarizes what we've been talking about this whole session, that it's the communication, it's the analytical skills, the ability to not only, process and understand data, but communicate it with people who might not be as familiar with that content, right? How do you communicate it to a diverse audience? And Tatiana, you also kind of are exploring and doing your master's in what we would traditionally consider the sciences. And I think that's another area where people sometimes wonder how the sciences fit in with the liberal arts, right? And so I would love if you could kind of lift up how you've really used your liberal arts education to strengthen your pursuit of the sciences professionally.
Absolutely. I think for me, what's really been an integral piece going into my master's now that I got from Oxy is that ability to critically think and really look at the material, look at the research that I am consuming and that I will be using to inform my practice in a way that I can see discrepancies or populations that are not as represented. So for example, I had an externship in medicine in the medical field over the summer, and I was looking at research and seeing that Latinx people weren't as represented, right? And I think that that's something that hugely inspires me later on also to conduct research that is more, indicative of actual, like my population, So again, it's that critical thinking, that communication. I've just really learned how to effectively write as well, which has been really good for my field.
Absolutely. No, I think that's so helpful to hear. I certainly could have benefited from hearing that when I was looking at colleges. So hopefully this kind of provides you with a bit of a broad understanding of the value of the liberal arts. We're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about what this looks like at Occidental, though, right? Our own institution, located in Los Angeles, where Andy and I are both zooming in from, and where Tatiana got to spend her 4 years at Oxy as well. Because you see that there's not one particular field or industry that dominates where students go. Instead, you see that students are going just about every and anywhere, whether that is in science, technology, and education, or law and government, or the nonprofit world, or even media, arts, and entertainment. And it doesn't always have to correspond with the major you had as a student. And Jessica, to kind of circle back to your question about wanting to be a doctor, the reality is that there's no one major that kind of prepares you to be a doctor. And that's true with most professional fields. A lawyer, an architect. Having a liberal arts degree prepares you to go into any of those industries. We actually have an English major right now at Oxy who's applying to medical school because we have the resources to really work with students on a one-on-one basis to say, what are your interests? What do you want to do? How do we make sure that you're still taking the classes you want and pursuing your goals? So you can go to medical school by majoring in biology or chemistry, but you can also go to medical school by majoring in English or history or cognitive science or computer science. There's no one direct course of path. And you'll see that Oxy alums end up working every and anywhere at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, at Kaiser Permanente in the Los Angeles Unified School District. The Department of State. We actually have an alum who majored in diplomacy and world affairs, right? And interned at the United Nations in New York. And then she graduated and got a job on the Broadway cast of Hamilton on the national tour. And in my mind, that is so emblematic of the Oxy experience. We also see about 70% of our students going on to graduate school over the 10 years after they graduate. So it might not happen that first year necessarily. We want you to have some time to get your hands dirty. Though for Tatiana, it certainly did. She went right into graduate school. But over the 10 years that you leave Oxy, we tend to see the majority of students pursuing a higher ed degree. And it's important to kind of note that the resources you have at Oxy, our Career Center, our pre-law and pre-health advising, are resources you really get to keep with you throughout your lifetime. It's not uncommon at all for alums to come back to the college and say, I think I'm ready to shift careers, or I think I'm ready to apply to law school now. What programs should I be looking at? Those are resources we want you to continue to have, throughout your professional life, really. When you look at who comes to Oxy, we talked a little bit that it was a school of about 2,000 students, and the average class is going to be about 19. Now, you might have classes that are as small as 10 students. You might have classes that are as large as 35 students, but they're all going to be very much discussion-based. And this is where we see those skills really get developed, that you are coming to class having done your reading, prepared to share your ideas, and your experiences. All of our classes are, of course, taught by professors, but But most of our students are coming from outside of California. So Andy was a bit of the exception to the rule. About 30% of Oxy students come from California. The other 60%, 70% are coming from outside of the US, or outside of the state, and about 15% are coming from outside of the US, I should say. Roughly 15% of Oxy students are first generation, meaning the first in their family to come to college, and about 30% of Oxy students speak a language other than English at home. So we really like to think that we are creating a campus that reflects a very diverse community and a diverse world, and that matters to us in terms of what those classroom conversations get to look like. Now you'll see really where Oxy is located in relationship to Los Angeles, right? We are in Northeast LA in Highland Park, about 15 minutes from downtown LA, which you can see kind of in the distance. This informs everything we do. It informs the classes, and how we teach, that we're able to get into the city. It informs the internships that our students are able to take advantage of, because you don't have to wait for summer or winter break to do an internship. You can do it during the school year, just by finishing your classes at noon or 1 p.m. and taking an Oxy, Bangle bus car rental, over to your internship site. So there's a lot of ways to really utilize the city, but it also means that our students get to have fun and explore Los Angeles. And so for Andy and Tati, if you both really quickly want to share some of your favorite things to do in LA as an Oxy student, I think that would be really, really awesome to hear. Andy, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the most fun things to do is just to try all the different food. There was a lot of good food around the campus, and a lot of food that was native to a broad diversity of cultures. I think that's very reflective of Los Angeles's or LA's demographic, and there are just so many options to choose from to try authentic food from a bunch of different cultures. So that was really cool. But I think, on top of that, there were just so many opportunities to be involved in the community, and I think one of the things that I got to do my senior year was work for a coffee shop that was also sort of a tutoring center right next door, and I got to work with children from the community who were having trouble in school, and was able to tutor them in whatever subjects they were struggling with, while also working the coffee shop, which would use its proceeds to donate towards water projects in Latin America. So it was just such a unique community experience, and there are just so many opportunities like that when you're in the middle of such a vibrant city, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tatiana, I'd love for you to take a stab at the question, and in particular, if there were any clubs or organizations you worked with that kind of utilized Los Angeles, that would be great.
Absolutely. So I actually created a club with a couple of fellow students on campus my sophomore year, and it's called Comparte. And essentially what we did, it came from the actual community. There was a community partner from EDEPSCA that came, and it's an organization that is for advocacy and for day laborers in Los Angeles. And we worked directly with Cypress Park, but essentially they came to campus asking for a couple of students to teach conversational English. And we started there. We started going once a week, and we started in one location, and then we actually grew to 3 locations because other day labor sites heard about us and they really wanted to have that functional English be taught. And for us, it was not like, let's teach grammar. It was like, how can we help you advocate for yourself when you are in these situations? So again, it was really amazing to explore Los Angeles in that way. Like I got to go to Cypress Park, something that I probably maybe never had known about before. In LA, like downtown LA too, Pasadena. So I got to explore in that way as well.
No, I think that's a really important example and really true to kind of the Oxy spirit. We are certainly all about Los Angeles and getting involved in Los Angeles, but also finding really meaningful and sustainable partnerships, ways to really work with organizations in LA to make the city a more equitable place. Really, it's something that we try and live on campus, but realize that there's a whole world beyond our own campus, that we're taking up space in a city, and we have a responsibility to be partnering with that city in many different ways. All right, that was, again, kind of just the quick summary version of Oxy, and I certainly encourage you to dig deeper into Oxy if it interests you. You can sign up for our weekly information sessions at oxy.edu. But I do want to spend some time really, really quickly talking about admission and financial aid, if you know that Oxy is the school for you. First and foremost, our regular decision deadline, and we are a common application school, so students would apply on the Common App, is a January 10th deadline. So you have plenty of time to work on it, but we do offer 2 rounds of early decision, which is the binding option, meaning if you were admitted, we would expect you to commit. The first round is coming up, but the second round is a little bit later in February. So you do have time, but do keep it on your radar if Oxy is a school you're looking at. We will be test optional this year, so there is no need for you to take the SAT or ACT, especially if you haven't done so, or submit your scores if you haven't had a chance to take the test. But we do encourage you to interview, and that would be a really valuable part of your application if you're able to do that. You can find out the interview, you can find out where to register for interviews on our website or just by Googling interviewing at Occidental, and it'll be the first link that pops up. The benefit, Jessica, of applying early decision is that you're communicating to us that Oxy is your top choice, but you're also allowing yourself to be done with the college search process that much earlier. So if you apply early decision 1, which is November 15th, you would know about your decision to Oxy in mid-December, right? So you'd be able to go into 2021 if you're a senior, already done with the college search process. Very tempting. Only about a third of our admitted students come in through early decision. So the majority of students will apply regular. Early decision should only be used if, again, Oxy really is kind of your top choice. And it makes sense for you academically, but also financially. Now, you'll get the same financial aid whether you apply early or regular. It's the same review process. But in regular decision, you're able to kind of compare your financial aid packages from many different schools. The good news is at Oxy, we meet 100% of demonstrated need. So we look at what your family could afford to pay a year. That's your family's estimated contribution. That might be $10,000. It might be $1,000. It might only be a few $100s. It's going to look different for every single family depending on your family's financial circumstances. Once we calculate what that family's contribution is, we subtract that from the total cost of attendance, and everything left is considered your demonstrated need. And that's what Oxy meets 100% of, in either the form of grants and scholarships, money you don't pay back, work study, money you earn on campus as a student, and then loans, money you would pay back after graduation. So we are going to make sure that that package meets 100% of the money you need. And I know, Elena, you asked a question earlier about affording housing on campus. That is taken into consideration when we're assessing your estimated family contribution and your demonstrated need. So oftentimes, living at Oxy and attending Occidental, even though it's a private institution, will be much more affordable than attending a state school, because we are able to kind of give you so many more resources as a private institution. So we certainly encourage you all to apply to private colleges, knowing that financial aid and meeting 100% of your demonstrated need is such a significant resource to be able to offer. And I believe Mari Sella from Oxy in the chat box shared a link where you can learn a little bit more about financial aid at Oxy. I also want you all to know that in addition to the CSS profile and the FAFSA, which you would submit if you are a US citizen, we do offer a limited amount of aid for undocumented or DACA students, right? So if you're afraid that you won't qualify for any federal aid, know that we're committed to fully funding a few DACA students every year. It is a competitive process, but it is still very much an accessible opportunity. So know that we want kind of the equity that we talk about in our campus life to really be reflected in how we review admission files. If you're applying to Oxy as an international student, as a non-US citizen with a citizenship to another country, then you would submit a certification of finances or the International Student Financial Aid application. So those are kind of the 3 different groups of how you would apply for financial aid. And I certainly encourage you to read more about that on our website. It's not necessarily the sexiest topic to end on, financial aid, but I think it's certainly important to understand as you are navigating the college search process. And there's no great way to kind of consolidate it into 5 minutes. I am glad we got to talk about it, though, and I am glad to also spend the last few minutes asking questions of our panelists. And I know you have been using the Q&A feature to do it. So let us see if there's any great questions for Tati and Andy. And I'm seeing something, lots of questions about admissions, which are great. Good. Important to learn. How do students learn about these amazing opportunities that you've had? That's a great question, Ethan. Tazi, how did you start to find out opportunities about Oxy? What was it like to kind of learn everything from studying abroad to clubs? What were kind of some of the ways you got in the know about what was going on at Oxy once you got here as a first-year student? Because it can be overwhelming, I'm sure.
Yeah, it can definitely be super overwhelming. But since the get-go, I actually was a part of a lot of clubs on campus. I was kind of known to be in a lot of clubs. So I did Greek life. I did also a lot of cultural clubs. I was part of what was then La Raza Coalition and Las Hermanas Aliadas, and quickly became a leader in those clubs. And through that, I actually had a lot of opportunities kind of come up, and I had a lot of mentorship. And a lot of that also happened in those like the res ed and the residential experience. But also just talking to my professors, that's what I really, really appreciated about Oxy. It's being able to go to office hours, and my professors always know who I am and know what my ambitions are. And I don't know, it was just really nice to have that support as well.
Yeah. Andy, you've done, I'd say, just as much as Tati. You've both had full-bodied Oxy experiences, from internships to studying abroad. How did you kind of navigate learning about those resources and programs?
Yeah, I mean, I think I learned a lot about a lot of that stuff during the search process and admissions process. I remember going to an Oxy Admitted Students Day, where I learned about a lot of the things that were available at Oxy, and that's really what made me choose the school is just how accessible all the different opportunities were. And so going into Oxy, I think I knew that I really wanted to take full advantage of all the opportunities that were available to me. And I think one thing that was super helpful for me is I was really intentional about going to the Career Center and as a freshman, which can be a little intimidating, but at the time, because you kind of feel like you just started college. Well, I started thinking about what you're going to do after college, but I think it was good for me because they helped me really identify the things that I had to do during those 4 years to really set myself up for success. And so that motivated me to be really intentional about going to club fairs and speaking with upperclassmen to ask them about things that they did that seemed really interesting that I would potentially want to do. And those things are all just so possible and so easy because of the small campus size. It's the Career Center is very accessible. Access to upperclassmen is very accessible just because it's such a small campus, I think.
No, and I realized we had this whole presentation on careers in the liberal arts, and I think we barely even touched on the Career Center. So I'm so glad you brought that up as a resource at Oxy, because I think it's one that really works with all students. And I think it's worth kind of underscoring. This can sound very daunting and very intimidating. I'm intimidated just by hearing all the awesome things you both did at Oxy. But the truth is, we really don't expect you to come in already having a master plan. All we want you to do when you come to Oxy is be curious about the world around you, want to do these things, be interested in kind of seeing what the world has to offer, and know that these resources, these opportunities are going to present themselves to you, that there are people here who are really going to work with you from day one to identify what your interest may be in the programs that you should be checking out. That might be our Career Center, it might be professors, it might just be upper class students who kind of take on a mentorship role. And to answer your question, Elijah, I think that was probably one of my favorite things about Oxy, is just being able to have such a great support network. But this is probably a great question to end on. Andy and Tati, your favorite thing about Oxy, kind of in 30 seconds or less. Go for it. And I'll give you all maybe a second to think about it. While you're thinking about it, I'll say my favorite thing, besides kind of the community, which everyone always says the community, is probably the Green Bean, which is our student-run coffee shop. It's run by students, it's managed by students. You can get some professional managerial opportunities by working there. You could also learn how to make a great espresso. But it was my favorite place to hang out and just do my homework, chat with other students, kind of listen to good music. They would occasionally do poetry slams or open mic nights. Andy, do you want to kick us off? Favorite thing about Oxy? However you interpret that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the food was really great. It probably, we have two dining halls, one that's normal lunch, dinner, breakfast food. The other one is kind of late night comfort food. And so late night comfort food was probably not the healthiest option. I was probably there more often than I should have been, but the food was really good. I also really liked the bike share service, which was just a service that allowed you to rent bikes for free, and for I think it was like a week or two at a time. And I never used it, but the idea of it sounded awesome, and it was one of the reasons that I chose to go to Oxy. And so I'm bummed that I didn't use it. So if any of you do, I highly encourage you to do it.
Yeah. And Tatiana, favorite? I agree. I think the bike share is just the coolest. The coolest group of people, the coolest, little corner campus. But Tatiana, what about you? What do you have to say?
I think my favorite part of Oxy was the quad. So that's kind of just like the center of Oxy. And basically what I liked about it, which is going to be really cheesy, but you could see everybody there. So you could see anyone from your friends in your like the friend group that you always see, or you can see someone that you haven't seen in forever and you can start catching up, or you can see a professor. And one of my favorite memories is actually one of my professors just like randomly running into me and taking 30 minutes out of their day to just talk to me about what my plans were after graduation and how he could help me kind of achieve all the goals that I wanted to. So that's the quad for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, it seems like we have hit your questions. I hope we have. If there's any final thoughts, feel free to throw them in. But I do want to say that this should only be the beginning of your college search process, and you all are doing such great work by even taking the time to learn about these different kinds of institutions, to learn about liberal arts colleges and what makes them unique, to ask questions about financial aid and internships and studying abroad. So, I would certainly say in conjunction with Andy and Tatiana that we just think you are really already doing great work just by being here, by asking questions. Any advice for seniors, for high school seniors navigating the college search process? I know it looks so different this year, kind of in the age of COVID, but if you could give kind of 2 cents or advice that you either wish you had or maybe that you got your senior year that really helped you kind of stay centered, what would that be? And Tatiana, why don't we kick off with you?
Yeah, totally. So I think the biggest thing that I can say is just be confident in who you are. You're awesome. I don't know you, but you're probably already really awesome, and you have such unique talents and abilities already. And I think a lot of times we aren't able to see it because society sometimes just sends a different message, but your story is the best. So just be confident in that and in your abilities.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, just going off of that, I feel like something I wish I would have had people tell me was not to limit yourself and not to sort of write off opportunities or schools or events because you feel like you perhaps aren't qualified. I think it can, you never know unless you try, and you certainly want to be strategic about your college search process. But at the same time, you also want to be willing to reach for things that you might think are outside of your reach, but like I said, you never really know unless you try. And a lot of times, it could be easy to underestimate ourselves, but perhaps there's something about your unique experience and upbringing that will mean a lot and that will capture the attention of admissions officers. So yeah, just throw that out.
Yeah.
And thank you all. I want to throw the question out to you, Julius. Do you have any parting words to share with our scholars today?
Sure. I would say the biggest thing, and in particular in this year, is to really make sure you're taking care of yourselves. And I say that for a few reasons. One is because, that's always important. But the other thing is that, learning how to take care of yourself is not going to magically happen when you get to college. College is going to be hard regardless of where you go. And so by taking the time now to know when you're feeling stressed, to figure out what steps you can take to unstress, to de-stress, to stay calm, you're already setting yourself up to succeed at college. So learning how to manage your time, how to navigate COVID, how to have hard conversations with your family as you're all living together under one roof. These are all skills that are really going to make a difference when you get to college, wherever that may be. So don't think that just by doing the all-nighters and by stressing yourself out, that'll kind of fix itself once you get to college. You're going to be the same person. And so the sooner you can really start to create great habits for yourself, the sooner you're really going to be able to find that sense of center and peace that is going to help you succeed in higher education. Oh, I think you're still muted, Brittany.
All right, team, we're going to go ahead and dismiss you from class. Session is over, but thank you so much for the wonderful insights that you all shared with us today, and really setting time out to speak with our audience and really making sure that they understand that there are so many great opportunities that they can explore. And we're just so happy that you all were able to join them in their journey as they are exploring. So I'm going to go ahead and have you all feel free to enjoy the rest of your night. But for my party goers, you guys have a little bit of homework. Don't leave just yet. We want you to complete the feedback survey. Tell us how we did. Did you enjoy the presentation that Oxy presented today? Do you have any feedback? Were there any questions that went unanswered? And if so, complete that feedback survey. It takes about 2 minutes to share your thoughts. And then you can also leave your email address if you want the Oxy team to reach out to you to answer any specific questions that you may have. But as we close, we hope you all feel more informed and comfortable about finding the best college for you and really helping you all navigate the many different options that you can take with your college career. And hopefully, you all have learned some really great colleges who are here to help support you in your success, support you in your exploration and on your journey. So thank you so much, Rowan and Occidental. You all did a wonderful job. You all spent so much time and energy putting together these presentations for our party goers, and we're just so thankful. Um, Team, I wanted to also let you all know tomorrow we're back for round 2 of the online college block party featuring University of Pittsburgh and Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona. And you all do not want to miss out. They'll be exploring majors and programs in health science, engineering, aerospace, aviation. Oh my, it's a lot. And we can't wait to see you all tomorrow. So please, put it in your calendar. Even if you can't make it, just join us for the replay. You all can access the recording immediately after we are live. And you can also take a look at your email. We'll be sending out an email on Friday with the recording and all of the presentations for you all to review. So don't forget to share with a friend. Sharing is caring. And then also let us know what you thought about the presentation. Take a screenshot and tag it, hashtag online college block party. So until tomorrow, you all please be safe, enjoy your rest, and thank you so much. All right, college green light out. Bye, everyone.